I've been told we have a piece of video that they wanted to run. Did you hear about this, Shane? Let's see.
I've got to tell you one thing. I'm a regular guy, and I go to these places and I go, okay, everyone talked to me about cannibalism, right? Everyone talked to me about cannibalism. Now I'm getting a lot of shit for saying about cannibalism and stuff, whatever. Everyone talking about cannibalism.
Yeah, most of my boys,
yeah.
Then we drain the blood from the innocent child and drink it before going to battle.
So you kill the child?
Yes.
And then drink the blood?
Yeah.
I left it up on a chopper, I'm gonna eat it.
That's fucking crazy. So the actual, our audience goes, that's fucking insane. Like, that's nuts. And the New York Times, meanwhile, is writing about surfing. And I'm sitting there going, you know what? I'm not going to talk about surfing. I'm going to talk about cannibalism because that fucks me up.
Just a sec, time out. Before you ever went there, we've had reporters there reporting on genocide after genocide. And just because you put on a fucking safari helmet and looked at some poop doesn't give you the right to insult what we do. So continue. Continue.
God.
That guy's sort of mean.
That he was really you were really an asshole, really. That was fantastic.
I think that's a technical legal term for it. But here we are 4 years later. You guys are still looking at poop on the beach, except they stayed, and there's an Ebola crisis, mushrooming. So even though I made fun of your staying power as a news organization, mostly because you insulted my colleagues, to be fair, you turned out to be right. What sort of changed from that moment to this moment? I mean, you guys are everywhere.
Well, I think that, you know, we were an entertainment brand. And then as we expanded around the world, we realized that there are these serious problems. And I kept saying, why isn't anyone saying something about this? You know, where are all the adults? And then I realized I have the largest platform for youth in the world, so I'll say something about it. So we started doing news, and we weren't perfect, but our audience said, yes, this is what we want. We don't want politicized talk radio on the right or comedy on the left, and you know, we just want you to go to the places and press record and show us what's going on. And that's been the fastest, you know, growing part of our business ever since.
And you guys you're there right now.
Yeah, we have a piece on Ebola up today.
It's a pretty fine piece, actually. Kira, when you have the advantage of being both from mainstream media, but not really about it, and you have this coast and you know the other coast. What about the evolving relationship between so-called legacy media brands and new media brands? It seems like they're marching toward each other.
Oh, I don't know. I think there's still so much tension. I still think the old media hates the internet and hopes it'll go away. I really do. I feel like they're like, oh, once again, Snapchat, what the fuck do I do now?
If we could only find the plug on the internet and just give it a good yank.
Like there's someone like that can pull the plug. And so I don't think there is. I think there's resistance. I think there's, you know, agonizing. There's nothing like a journalist agonizing about their future. That's just the most tiresome thing of all time, just like right now. But it's really, I don't think it is. I think the situation is changing so fast, and it's like the music industry, like Hollywood, it's still sort of pretending that perhaps it will go away. I don't think it's marching together.
But Jonah, I can remember 8 months after Buzzfeed launched, we were the New York Times was in a partnership with them doing our election coverage, and you could see the people walking around and what the hell is a Buzzfeed? How did they end up our partners? When did that start?
It is. It's a little like grumpy old man shaking his fist at the internet, like, oh, I'm so mad about these young kids and what they're doing. But you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the entertainment industry sees the internet as another window to try to sell content into, and not as an authentic medium where you can tell stories in new ways. And I think, you know, we're in the Bay Area, and you know, a lot of people talk about disruption, and when you look at the sort of theories that Clay Christensen talks about, if you actually read his book and not just use it as a buzzword, a lot of what he describes is people starting with entertainment, starting down market, starting with something that's fun and playful and that is easy to make fun of, and then over time those things move up and become able to meet the needs of the consumers and readers. And I think we're at that moment now where you're seeing a few pure digital companies that are moving up and essentially able to do what the traditional media used to be only able to do. Now we're able to do it too.
But don't you find, to go back to David's point, that mainstream media is looking to come to you or come to Vice to say, okay, we need to figure this out, and we can't, so we want to buy you?
But all you ever do is like...
Yeah, they do that.
Haven't you noticed that?
Yeah, I've noticed,
Jonah?
I have noticed that.
All right.
all you ever do, Shane, is take their money and maintain control. That doesn't really seem fair.
Well, I learned that from out here,
Okay,
Silicon Valley.
If you...
Well,
Kara, if you-
and part of the problem is it wouldn't even save them if they bought us. You know, it's like when you look at it, you're like, this isn't even just from our standpoint. If we, you know, staying independent allows us to do a lot of things that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. You know, even if they bought us, they would still have a massive legacy industrial era media beast that they have to feed.
Is this televised?
What?
Is this televised? Because if they bought us, we would save them.
No, I think they do. It would be more as an irritant. Now, we signed a deal with NBC, which is working out shockingly well, like in terms of cooperation. But one of the things we had to do was Walt and I maintain control over the company.
Mm-hmm.
And so you find when you have a media company that owns more of you or has a control of you, they want to just fuck with you. And when they own a lesser, they want to help you. And so it's a really interesting dynamic.
What about your ability to project culture into the larger blob?
Yeah, that doesn't happen. It doesn't.
Okay.
It's more irritated. They're really irritated. I mean, when, you know, it was written about a lot when Walt and I left News Corp, and, you know, I think I heard from a lot of people, they were irritated by us more than, you know, we were doing really interesting things, and you'd think they'd go, wait, you're doing those, why did you do it that way? Or at one point, it was Rupert or someone was like, how do you break so much news with just 8 people or whatever, I think at the time. And I said, yeah, how do we do that? And he goes, well, how do you do that? And I said, well, how do we do that? And it was like an Abbott and Costello routine. But I was like, why don't you look at why?
You confused him.
Yeah, I don't think so. I never turned my back on Rupert Murdoch. But I think that they don't understand. It was like a lack of curiosity or something, and I'm not sure why it was. And maybe I think I am irritating, so I'm not sure which part was. But but I think it was interesting that nobody ever came around to wonder how we did it or wanted to understand the dynamics of it.
But sometimes the answer is not. I mean, video has beguiled mainstream media. We keep thinking there's such a huge opportunity here. And how hard could video be, right? Pretty fucking hard. Pretty damn hard. And yet, at your brand, for sure, you've had great luck, great fortune with video, and I'm sure the answer is, well, how do you get people to watch video? And your answer is, well, you make it really good and interesting. Right?
You could just interview yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean...
Ooh, you got it back
I do that a
little
lot
bit.
at home.
That was for 4 years ago, and then we're going to come after you some more.
I mean,
By the way, cannibalism is fascinating. I don't care how you slice it.
Come on, Carr.
of course it is. You were going to say.
Yeah, I was going to say, 2 years ago, we had no video business at all. And we looked at what a lot of print publications do. And when they go into video, they get a mousy reporter to sit in front of a screen and like...
I've done a lot of that work, so be careful.
Talk about their story. And, you know, we acquired a small company led by this guy, Zay Frank, and we said, you run video. It's like it's its own startup. It doesn't have to live on Buzzfeed. It can, on Buzzfeed's site, it can live anywhere. You know, and he started experimenting with formats. And now we have a 4-acre studio lot in Los Angeles. We did 500 million video views of all original video last month. You know, and it's just been growing like crazy. But it's like we take the medium seriously, and we're not just trying to take what we're already doing and just like shoehorn it into video.
It isn't as hard. It's really interesting. We just had a video that went crazy. Lauren Good happened to be at a GoPro event, jumping on a trampoline, and Apple decided to show us Bendgate, which was the gift they kept on giving in terms of stories, and people were super interested in it. And so we went up to the Apple lab where they bend things, I guess, and she did a video just on her phone, and I think it's up to 3 million views on YouTube. We don't quite know why that worked, but she did a beautiful job. But it was really interesting, and it's not just because it was Bendgate, because there was plenty of bend stuff. But we were trying to figure out why that worked. Or she also actually, interestingly, put an iPhone 6 in a toaster and then put the Pop-Tart next to her head. But she was trying to get the idea of how big these things were and different stuff. And
it's almost as interesting as cannibalism.
No, but it was. What happened was that people wanted to see the inside of these labs, and we didn't. I think we spent maybe no dollars on the whole thing and got a lot of advertising from it.
It's hard. I mean, as you know, a lot of times it's a lottery, right? You don't know what's going to be popular. If you would ask me what the most popular thing Vice ever did, it would be North Korea or Liberia or something like that. It's tardigrade space cows. The first animals can live in the vacuum of space, which started a whole thing about are we Martians and all this business. And that's the biggest thing we've ever done. But I don't think you can, and this is why Jonah's smart, is you can't bank on winning the lottery. You have to say, okay, how do I grow my video business every day?
Right.
And that's quality. And that's just the only answer. It has to be
the tardigrades video that you talk about, my daughter, as you know, spent time as one of your, do you call them slaves or employees? I always forget.
Well, we pay them better than the New York Times.
We call them our children.
Yes.
We're part of the cult.
So she came to me and I said, that's adorable, you're making those little videos. That's really cute. And then she made the tardigrades video 12 million later, and I started interviewing her. Part of what happens with video is we want people who make different content, but we don't want them to look or act any differently. I asked Dave Frank to come see us, and they're just like, who the hell is that guy? And I think just as when companies want to diversify, they expect the employees to bear the burden of diversity. A lot of times when it's innovation, it's like, come, act like a robot, but do great things, right? I'm interested, Kara, in sort of evolving what the Valley thinks of content. For a long time, it seemed like people out here thought of what we do as interesting software that might animate their device sales.
Yes, that's still what we think.
So no evolution.
No, I think certain people do. Obviously, Reed Hastings has made a bet in that area that content is interesting, going sort of an HBO-like route to that. But that's done a lot of Los Angeles, which is where it's done. I think people are interested in content here. The Googles, the Amazons, the Microsofts even. Although they've pulled back.
And the investors.
Investors, and there's a lot of investors lately because of the devices, of what can have control of it. And I think they feel as if, especially with what happened in the music space, they want to have control over the content that goes over these devices. And so I think in 2 years, I said this just recently, Apple might buy a Disney. You could see that happening. Sure. You could see Google buying a big company because they want to have control of the content itself. And it seems just the way Comcast bought NBC, it seems inevitable to me.
AT&T as well making moves because they want video to drive data usage.
Right.
So what you're having a lot of people who've invested in platform out here for the last 10 years, platform. And now people realize, well, you have to fill that pipe with something. If you have the device and you have to have, the reason why they're building these things to be this big, why? So you can watch video on them.
Right.
That's the only reason.
And even like Marissa Mayer at Yahoo, it's really interesting that she's approving scripts. I adjusted, just reading scripts. She's hired Katie Couric. There's all kinds of things happening.
Katie will be here later.
Yeah,
today.
exactly. So that was a big check she wrote to get Katie to go there. And so there's obviously an interest in having that there. Sorry, Katie. Anytime. Congratulations, honey. Anytime a woman gets that much money, I'm thrilled. But I mean, there's something happening there. So what does she want to become a media company, or is she wanting to put people to the platform? And so it's, there's all kinds of things going on. Amazon doing all its series, transparent or something.
Yeah, I think Amazon's having more trouble. I think Netflix have done just a fantastic job. And if you look at how much money they put into it, it probably wouldn't have made money in a traditional sense. But if you look at what it did to their market cap, it took it out of that tremendous hole.
Yeah, it was a movie like Push, but what it was launching was not a show, but a business. And I think one of the lessons of Apple, who's done a fair amount of business in this building, is you can build whatever gadget you want. The creation of a marketplace with the price point that people agree with or are willing to pay. I mean, the iTunes store may have lost relevance in the streaming era, but for the time it was an amazing creation. Somebody used a web marketplace to separate consumers from money, which is,
But look at iTunes it's declining. The buying of content is declining. It's now streaming. Is where Peter Kafka just wrote a big story about that. And so the devices are critical to the entire experience.
But do you guys ever feel you talked about why phones are getting bigger? Do you feel like you're getting pushed around by these form factors? In other words, if your product is going to show up on a small screen, it's going to be a list. It's going to be a list. It could be based on hierarchy. It could be based on recency. It could be based on relevance to the person. But does it feel like less fun now that you're working with less real estate?
For us, no. I mean, you've been out to the Hive, and every single space that's available is an edit suite. And every one of our offices, we're just more and more and more edit suites wide. Because we cut for mobile, we cut for online, we cut for TV, and for features. So we recut, and we have to own that process. And we shoot thinking that way as well, modularly. But I think that right now, actually, I like the way that the phablets are going, because I stopped traveling with a PC. And so I'm like, well, it was great for everything except for video, watching stuff. And when you have this phablet now, it's amazing. I mean, the quality is incredible. And I think that if you look at, we think as goes India, so shall go the world. Why? Because men own pretty much the bandwidth, which is taken up by cricket. Women own the TVs, which is Bollywood. And then there's this the youngest population on earth that are thirsty for any kind of content, especially international content, and no one's making anything. On top of that, what happened here with the PC, which got commodified down, has already happened there. So everything's a $20 smartphone, number two off the Chinese, the back way. So everything is about data usage, and it's all about video. And Jonah, so we see that as the future.
Why would you feel pushed around by it? It is what it is. It's like arguing, gosh, this electricity thing is so irritating. I like candles.
I know, once the consumer decides that's all you need to know, but some people anticipated, Jonah, I can think of, in BuzzFeed, it's just like, oh, it's just a bunch of lists. How could that be valuable?
Don't give him a listicle problem. Listicles are great. But what when you think about the size, it's like, it literally is like people arguing. I would be in meetings in the Wall Street Journal where they were like, let's get young people to read the paper. And I was like, nobody's reading the fucking paper. It's not the medium that matters. And I think, at one point I was in a meeting and they were literally trying to get people to read the paper, actual physical paper. And I put my hand up. I said, you should put a joint between each page, tape it, and then maybe the young people. And they got kicked out of that.
That's why you make the big money.
Yes.
That's marketing, damn it.
But the size is terrific. This new 5-point. Let me tell a really good joke. My son told this in an Apple store.
We'll be the judge of that.
Okay, it's a really good joke. But it was about size and these the new Apple iPhone 6 Plus. So my son said, Apple is run by men when they name something iPhone 6 Plus and it's only 5.5 inches.
Nice!
I credit my son for telling me that one. But the 5.5 inches turns out to be just fine. It works, son.
I could not agree more. I just want to be on the record.
I read the New York Times every day on my tiny little.
Is Johnny Ive here?
Yeah. He'll be here later.
I'm just saying, I read.
We're going to have to bring out a measuring stick.
Jonah, where are you at on the sufficiency of 5.5 inches?
So
He could take it bigger, but he doesn't have to.
It's not the motion of the ocean.
I think a few threads here that I'd like to pick up on.
Sort of grab a hold of, so to speak.
He's such a nice guy. He's going,
I think
I'm not going to think of a penis. I'm not going to think of a penis.
I think that the question of are the formats oppressive? I think that's what's really exciting right now. That's like what gets me super excited. It's like saying in the early days of Hollywood was the fact that there was only one reel was that oppressive. It was like, well, no, you made for a reel, and then there was 2 reelers and 3 reelers, and in each time you got to continue to evolve what you were doing and build for this new world that was emerging that allowed you to tell stories in new ways and reach consumers in new ways. So that's incredibly exciting. I agree with what Shane was saying earlier, which is there's not a lot of people thinking that way and making content for the way people consume media today. And that, I think, creates a big problem because you have these massive tech companies and these massive platforms that are incredibly valuable in terms of their revenue multiple and their revenue. They're huge. And then you have giant media companies that are still focused almost entirely on industrial era forms of production, whether it's printing presses or movies or even the cable bundle. And then people increasingly on an average Tuesday night are saying, I want to spend time in my Facebook newsfeed. I want to spend time on YouTube. I want to spend time with media being created on Buzzfeed or Vice, or I want to spend time on media being created by this much larger world of producers where social is helping you find stuff that you're going to really like, and machine learning is helping recommend things to you. And that stream is as engaging and as exciting as watching a piece of highly expensive produced media behind a paywall, which is your other alternative. And so a lot of people are shifting over and saying, I want to be in that stream. But there's no media companies, or very few media companies, making media for that stream. And I think that's where you see this huge disconnect between the tech industry and the media industry, because the media industry can't actually provide the stuff that the tech industry needs.
Yeah, but if you're, just a sec though, if you're real estate constrained, if it's a smaller space that you're working into, what some people might say is that there's room for everything on that phablet except a business model, and that it puts us over into the realm of native, where what is an ad, what is content, becomes very kind of slippery and weird, and that having a native content built into that list.
I think that's insulting to consumers. I think they know just what they want, and I think they know. Ann Sweeney at Disney years ago said something that really struck with me: is consumers have taken control of the media and they're not giving it back. And you have to have respect for your consumers, how they're consuming, how they like to consume. How I think about
or
how
you could fool them and maybe make a business out of that.
Yes, but why is that your first premise? Why not say, what can we do here that's creative and interesting? The first premise of most media people is something's wrong here. There's something, instead of being creative, like with us, like we make a lot of money from our conferences. It's the fact. So what? It also creates news. And so it gives you an opportunity to be creative rather than grumble about what's happened. What's happened has happened, and it ain't going back. It just isn't. And if you
that
think it
part
is,
we've got, we're clear on that.
I know, but then why not say, what can we do about that instead of
but you're avoiding the question, which is part of native a game. Is it?
I trust consumers to understand the difference, and
because it's in your business interest to do so.
But I don't know what
it's
native
in your
means
business interest to keep a printing press going. So what? It doesn't. I think consumers are a lot smarter, and especially young consumers, and of any age, in these mediums, and they know what they want, and they're not being fooled constantly by bad things. They like Shane's content or the Buzzfeed stuff because they like it and they know how to consume it. It's just a different way of consuming.
I think that native is a term that sort of means everything and doesn't mean anything at the same time, because you can have, you can make content, and then the same team that makes the content can make the media around that content, which turns out to be the best way to activate that content with Facebook or whomever to go in there. But native can also mean, brands, and most of the brands we work with are moving away from spots and dots or traditional advertising, and they want to move more into sponsorships, production partnerships. They want to go direct. They don't want to go through agencies anymore. They want to go direct to consumer. All these different things. They want to get into transactional. And I think that, going forward, what you have to do is say, we're going to give you earned media rather than paid media, because that's what they want going forward. And by the way, they have all the money. they control TV and film and online and magazines and newspapers. And if they're going to say, I don't want to do traditional advertising anymore, then somebody's got to do something about that.
Okay,
Well,
well
and
said.
there's a 100-year-plus tradition of brands like Procter & Gamble looking to see the shifts that are happening in the media industry and then following to where people's attention is. And so I think they're seeing that happen again. And in the very early days of all these things, people always think, oh, but this isn't, there's a lot of fear around the new thing, and then it becomes normalized, and people start to understand it, and it over time.
What I find
Wait,
funny.
though, 1 sec. I just want to warm you guys up. We are going to get to questions. There's mics here and there, and we're going to invite you into the conversation you were saying, like momentarily.
Well, I agree with you, and I think what's funny is we're ironically going back to TV pre-advertising as we know
Sponsorship,
it,
yeah.
in that you were going to make only the Shadow Knows, and it was going to be sponsored by Calgon,
Right.
but it could be sponsored by Chesterfield's. Chesterfield's the cigarette.
I know what they are.
Yeah.
I'm super old.
But you're going to make only the Shadow Knows anyway. But what brand will fit?
Well, yeah, it is, because we're talking about, we were doing a series right now called Innovation Nation about problems in cities of creating innovation. And we're going to do events with it, we're going to do audio, we're going to do video, and we're going to get a single sponsor across all of them. Because it's just the way we do at the conferences, because it works better, because they want quality, they're dying for quality content. I don't think that's, I think it's their difficulty is with the spot ads and the small things. That's where they have a problem. But say we did, I'm really interested in technology of food. I don't know why I'm obsessed with Soylent, but good God, I am. And whether
There's an art to cannibalism there,
yes,
if you want.
that's true.
We broke the Soylent
I
story
know,
too.
I know.
Though, so.
It's people. Soylent Green is people.
They could have picked a better name.
I know, it's true, right? I know.
Does everyone know what she's talking about? It's this thing, and they call it Soylent.
Omega Man, right, exactly, with Charlton Heston. Genius actor, even though he's appalling
I
in
just
many ways.
vomited in my mouth a little bit when you said it. It doesn't sound that delicious.
But what I'm saying is I'm interested in the technology of food. I want to do a series on that. Why can't I find a sponsor that can sponsor that? But it's the content, the premium content and the quality content we were starting with. We weren't thinking of it as an advertising thing. We were thinking it as a content thing.
Sure.
All right. Do we have people lined up? I can't even really.
There's a dude there.
Yes, I see someone right there.
That is a dude.
I'm pointing at you.
Okay, thank you. I
Young
was
lady.
looking there, so I wasn't sure.
He just said there's a dude over there.
Well, he
and I
was
go,
there
he's
first.
not really a dude. He's very
What,
sensitive.
was the dude there first?
Yes.
You were first.
Very gallant of you, but you were there first, so go ahead.
I'll go first and I'll go quickly.
Sorry, we're out of time now, guys.
Controversial proposition on this panel. Everything's controversial. So there's something which you might call invention, you guys, and there's something that's different, I think, which is called reinvention, what some of the traditional media companies are trying to do. Let me direct this at Shane, but jump ball. Shane, if you were somehow magically transported to be in charge of reinvention, what are the top 3 things you'd steal from yourself in order to reinvent a business? Or would you burn the house down if it were a cable network?
Let's just make this better. He's running the New York Times, right?
What are the top 3 things that you've learned that would reinvent somebody?
Well, look, I'm dating myself as a Gen Y company, and it's Dylan going electric. We can't be afraid to change. I always say every 5 years we give over the company to the interns. But I think that, for it to be real, so young people have been marketed to since they were babies because cartoons are made to sell cereal. So they have the most sophisticated bullshit detectors of all time. And the only way to sort of circumnavigate that bullshit detector is to not bullshit. And what that means is young people have to shoot it, young people have to cut it, it has to be made by. Now, what legacy media does is they're not going to give a 24-year-old $3 million and say, go make your own TV show, right? Which is exactly what they should be doing. And I think you have to rip out all of the pipes and you have to say, look, development. Everybody wants to, if Marissa Mayer is giving notes on scripts, we're in trouble, right? Because, I'm serious, because development...
Maybe they're good notes.
Development, you should go, look, anyway. Development should just go do it, and some stuff will come back and be excellent, and I think we have this thing where I forget the stat, but it's like 1,000 scripts are developed for 100 pilots for one show, and 80% of those shows don't make it past their first year. So it's just prohibitively expensive to develop And whereas online, you have total.
There's a lot of
freedom.
people who make a fine living flushing all that content down the toilet. The inefficiency is
But
how
they shouldn't.
They do
No,
it.
but I mean,
But I would rip out the pipes. In answer to your question, I would rip out the pipes, and I would get young people, and I would start again, because Rupert and the legacy media are going to have their 60-plus, baby boomers for the next 5-10 years, and then we're going to have a new general media population, which is Gen Y. And I'm staggered that so few people are trying to get in there. The number one cohort that goes out and spends money on food, Gen Y. Name one Gen Y specific food show other than Vice.
Of course, you do have an investment from Rupert.
I'm still thinking about authenticity being exclusively something that the young can do.
Your food show, it's called?
Well, we have a number of them. Fuck That's Delicious is the one you're talking about.
Fuck That's Delicious. Of course. Go ahead, Jonah.
So, a quick story. So, our studio in LA, Buzzfeed Motion Pictures, we have a lot of young people who come and work there. And their experience before they work at BuzzFeed is they are going to auditions, they're pitching stuff, they're trying to write stuff. If they're lucky, they get something sold that never gets made. And then they come to our studio and they just start making stuff, and then they get better and they learn, and they're putting stuff online, and they're seeing how people are interacting with it, and they're collaborating with other people who are making really interesting things. And it just grows and grows and grows, and they make a living doing it, as opposed to doing some other job while trying to break into the traditional Hollywood model where you either make a ton of money or you're almost unemployed. And so, we just think, like, where would, if you had a kid who wanted to go into the entertainment industry or wanted to go into the media industry, how do you make an environment where you'd be excited that they do it? Where they say, wow, I want my kid to go do that, because they're going to have a creative environment, they're going to be able to make stuff, they're going to be able to do stuff. And the traditional model is not that right now. I
don't think it's a function of age, though. I mean, one of the things we do at Recode is we do have a range of ages, from very old like myself to very young. And I don't think it is a function of age. I think it's an attitude fostered by the leadership, where we have this thing. I have this t-shirt, it's from improv, the yes and way to be.
Yeah.
And I'm not like one of these, believe, who moved my cheese, I never read it, anything like that. But the idea that when you have an idea, there's a lot of media when I used to work in it was yes, but. They'd always say, but this wouldn't work because you can't do this. There was a lot of why you couldn't. And one thing that I do like about Silicon Valley, for all its ridiculous hype and blowhardiness, is that there's a lot of yes and it does infect you. And so if you have an idea, and it's not that there's bad ideas, it's that you don't shoot it down or you add to it. It changes the whole dynamic. Can we do, like, I'm obsessed with doing an entire story on Snapchat. I don't know how to do it, I'm just interested. Could we do it? Could we do an entire thing in text? Could we do an Instagram story? Like, could we try all kinds of things and not make fun of each other?
The Snapchat story wouldn't last very long.
I know that, that's exactly right. Sure.
Not only gracious, but patient as well. Please go ahead.
Okay, so like a lot of people in this room and probably around the world, I consume my news in both the traditional media as well as new media, right? So in March, I had read the Boko Haram piece in GQ, British GQ, right? Really good. And didn't think of it, and then the Nigerian girls were abducted, and so it came back onto my radar. And then we have friends through the Tech Women program who come from Nigeria. We have girls from Technovation who participate from Nigeria. So it came back to our radar. And we followed it like everybody else. It bubbled up on Twitter and bubbled up for a few weeks, right? We arranged a to support these women, stand in solidarity with them, bring back the girls.
Got it.
But the question is, it's gone. The girls are gone, but all that stuff in traditional media and in social media, it's gone. But the girls have been gone. So
we're shooting that right now. So it's not gone. I mean, one of the things, the problem with the news cycle is it is like kindergartners playing soccer. The ball, and everyone goes over here and everyone is over there. But Liberia, and by the way, I'll give kudos where kudos is due. The New York Times have been reporting on that for a long time. and what we learned from that is we don't care about the news cycle. What's happening in Nigeria doesn't just go away when the cameras get turned off. What's happening in Iraq doesn't go away when what's happening in Afghanistan doesn't go away when the cameras get turned off.
But it's hard to resist the news cycle. I don't think this is something new.
It does your marketing for you.
Yeah, I don't think it's something new. And we think about it all the time, like these endless funding stories. And I just like one of the things I say to our staff is like, I call them hot dogs. Like everybody's making hot dogs, and we make particularly delicious hot dogs, but they're still friggin' hot dogs. They're not good and they're not nutritious. And so what can we do that pulls it off of that? And but it's hard. It's very hard to resist.
Right. And so the question is, are you guys thinking of a novel way of keeping something that's super important to everybody in this world and sort of just having it there as a bookmark?
Shane said the secret is staying, not going away. And you don't. That's the problem of an algorithm will always push you into what is hot, and sometimes you have to just demonstrate leadership. As I wanted to squeeze in one more super quick one.
Roman with Patau. So the headline is that 60% of the world is under 30. It's the largest economic force in the U.S. and in the world. And with the conversation with Tom and Daniel, and what you guys, Jonah, Shane, what you guys have built is all focused on youth. 15 years, that hasn't changed in 10 years. 15 years ago, we only had MTV, but now we have Snapchat and we have YouTube. So why has that changed now? And why do you think now there's so much power with young people? And do you think that's a great thing or not?
I'm focused on old white men almost primarily. I love them.
I am an old white man.
Yeah.
Look, I think it's a great thing.
Demographic.
I like
it's a great thing.
It's overused and spread out too much, but it is a good demo. I just want to say.
Every generation, you have a changing of the guard in media, and that's a good thing. And that's happening today with my fellow panelists here. And I think if we don't shake shit up, I think that there's been a failure in mainstream media in a lot of cases. I think if you look at this country, especially, news on one side and news on the other just becoming hyper-politicized and no one actually telling news, not the New York Times.
God, what's, okay. You're being so nice.
I'm being nice.
You're hoping he doesn't attack you like a rabid dog.
I'm more worried about you.
No, I'm fine.
Anyway.
I like everything you got going on.
Look, it's a great thing, and the baby boomers have had a stranglehold on media for 40 years, and it's time that it ends. Good thing.
We have 30 seconds. I promised a mic drop, so one of you guys grab it at 30 seconds. Go ahead.
This is going to be like 4 or 5 minutes.
Jonah, you're taking up 4 seconds.
I think that people generally underestimate new technologies. They generally underestimate young people, and then they're always wrong.
And my thing is 5.5 inches is plenty.
You've done it! Again, Kara. Thanks to Graydon, to Walter, to Vanity Fair, and most especially my panelists. And you guys, thanks.